Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of CDAO Fall Virtual 2021. My name is Maisa Roberts. I am a conference director and head of programming here at Corinium, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today. Remember that during our sessions, you can submit questions to our speakers using the Q&A button at the bottom of the page. You do not need to wait until the end. Feel free to send us the questions as you think of them, and we'll do our best to get through as many as possible during Q&A time. You can also use the chat to share your thoughts on the content and interact with your fellow attendees. For any technical queries, we ask you to please refresh your browser first. And if that doesn't work, please head over to Help Desk under Account. We'd like to also say a big thank you to all of our sponsors for your support, and to our audience. Make sure to check out the Meet the Sponsors tab, where you are also able to request meetings with any of our solution experts that are here at the event. Now, with that done, I would like to invite our next speakers to come off mute and switch their cameras on. I'd like to say a big welcome to Alvin Wong, Head of Marketing at Tellius, and Axel Goris, Global Visual Analytics Lead at Novartis. Hi, Axel. A quick intro on Axel. He has over 20 years of proven and award-winning track record of augmented insights, visual analytics delivery, and capability building. His mission is to empower business with insights through human-centric design, automation, and innovation. After years of consulting in pharma, health, and financial services, Alex has joined Novartis in January 2020. He has an academic background in cognitive science, intelligent user interface design. Thank you again for joining us, and welcome to our virtual stage.
Thank you very much, and pleasure to be here. Let me start with sharing my screen. Right, hope this is all visible. So yes, today I'd like to talk to you about how we approach delivering augmented intelligence at scale. And I'll start with a quick intro, but actually, Maisa, you did that so brilliantly, I'll probably skip over that quite quickly. I'll position the conversation with the challenge that we have today as an IT function to provide the best sort of support to the business. I talk how we approach that specifically to structure around the personas and their use cases, and how we then fit the technology to it. And then I'll conclude with some notes and comments on how we approach the biggest challenge, which is analytics-ready data. And then I'll hand over to Alvin to talk a little bit more about the Tellius platform. Cool, so we already had a really nice intro, so I'm not going to dwell on this. You heard I lead the visual analytics team at Novartis, which is part of our user experience team. Officially, I'm based out of the Novartis campus in Basel, but I've not been there much since March last year. So I will work from the nice sort of surroundings of my own home in the Netherlands. So I'll start with positioning the challenges, especially around delivering and scaling augmented insights. I think the first point is really that we see the strategy, the strategic value that our business are putting on becoming data-driven and analytics-driven, and that means that we get demand through the roof for support, and if we as an IT function assume that all of the delivery has to be done by us, it's not going to scale. We become the bottleneck. So we need to find other ways of enabling business to do more themselves. Then separately, on the technology strategy, obviously there's a lot of promise and potential in AI-enabled user interfaces, capabilities. There's a lot of excitement about what's going on in the market. All of the existing vendors are doing a lot, but there's also a lot of new vendors coming along. And the challenge is, on one hand, to be open to try out new things, but on the other hand, you can't jump on every new technology. So it needs to be done in collaboration with the business, be open for new ideas, but at the same time, also think about, what's the scale? How does it going to scale to, so that we can drive towards maximum impact? Then, because we're a heavy heavily regulated industry, being compliant is extremely important. It's a non-negotiable. And that means that, if we want to enable business to do more themselves, provide more autonomy, it also means more accountability, and also be sure that we put guardrails in place that, we stay compliant and business can deliver in a safe way. And linked to that also, we're moving more to a world of ongoing quality monitoring and away from this idea of toll gate checkpoints that you cannot move to the next step or deployment unless someone's sort of stopped and looked at it and inspected what you're going to do, what you're going to deploy. We want to change that by putting ongoing quality assurance in place, very short feedback loops to the developers and the product owners, so that they have a continuous view on the risk profile of their products, and enabling them basically to fix them as soon as they arise. And obviously, if things really sort of don't improve, then IT can always step in later. To summarize, basically, the role of IT is really changing, and we see that as a duty to drive towards it, to unboss our technology platforms, enable business to do more, and accelerate how we and they deliver on them. And this is also where there's a lot of opportunity for DevOps practices and automation to make things go much faster. So within this context, I really want to focus on the topic of technology strategy. How do we drive that conversation with the business and guide towards a safe scaling of new technologies? So to start, to have useful conversations with business about the technology needs and choices, it's very tempting to start talking about tools and features straight away. But first, we need to be really clear about who are the users that we're looking at, and what are the recurring use cases that we're seeing from them. So we provided quite a structured approach to this. We've got 3 main personas that we look after from my team. We've got the business consumer. These are the highest number of business users, but at the same time, the least likely to go in depth in the data. They want to be triggered by, where is their attention needed and what is their action that they need to take, and even better if the tool can already help them take that action. And then you've got the supporting layer of business analysts who work with these consumers and go deeper into the data and find more difficult answers to more difficult questions. So they will spend a lot more time, but actually you don't want them to be spending a lot of time in preparing data. It's all about how fast can you get to the insight, and then allow them to deliver the insights through a story, to their audience, in order to get an action or a decision. And then, so those are really the business-focused roles. You've also got the producers rather than consumers, the people who build assets for use by these business users. So you've got the front-end developer who will build applications or dashboards or data models for consumption by the business users. And the most advanced are the data scientists, who we don't really focus on that much because they have their own preferred platforms. But important to note is that if you want to enable business, these developers, you want to enable them to sit within the business, be managed by business, to help continuously deliver and improve the business monitoring and the tools for the business analysts. So this provides the structure, and it helps clearly articulate each use case. And so here we've got a different view layered by the different personas, like swim lanes, where we map each of the individual use cases and how they link together. And then with the blue circles, we've indicated which are particularly suited for augmented intelligence, so AI-enabled enhancing features to enhance the capabilities of the user. So, one of them would be assisted advanced analytics, putting data science skills in the hands of a business analyst who may not be a data scientist. But it really helps also understand the end-to-end journey, to understand where a consumer might be starting with an alert and then going to a monitoring application, or starting to ask questions of the data. And maybe that's the endpoint for them to take an action outside of the system, or they go to the analyst and ask question, why is this, popping up in my dashboard, or why is, where are my sales so low for last week? And this is where the business analyst will then pick up, and usually they will end, their story with their journey with a story. So this really helps for us to understand the switchover points between the handover points between the different use cases and across the different personas. So with that in mind, I'll just show you one example. So for each of these use cases, we've created a more detailed definition where we describe the use case in a technology agnostic way, really sort of empathizing with the persona and trying to understand the need from the business. What are the trigger points? So what starts that use case, or where does it come from? Because often it comes from another use case. So this particular one, insights exploration, could be, the user starts with preparing a data set or a question from a consumer in the business. And then there's defining features. What defines, the activities or the features that would enable the user to fulfill this use case? And what is the action that the user would take away or move into as a sort of a follow-up step? So that way of structuring helps us, with the discussion with the business about really what is the need, and it challenges ourselves that have we understood the business need correctly, and also moves away first from starting to talk about the technology before we've really nailed the need. Now, so with that in mind, we've now got a detailed set of use cases per persona and defining features. It means that we can start scoring our platforms on those features. And before we move on, I want to make clear that the scores here are purely illustrative, not reflective. This is about me talking about our approach to governing the technology rather than, me. I don't want to be endorsing any platform at this point. It's important here because we can then show where we feel the existing platforms, so like our scaled visual analytics platform, really supports the business use case well. We also indicate where we would apply custom web solutions, and also shows where we might have some gaps or where we feel we need to look at better ways of supporting the business. So this could drive discussions with our vendors. It could also drive us to look for additional tools or extensions to deliver a better experience. And so especially when we look at things that we hear from the business around the desire to allow business analysts to do more advanced analytics, to support them better also with other aspects of their user journey. This is where we start looking at tools like Tellius to provide assisted advanced analytics capabilities. And again, the scoring is not a reflection of Tellius. It's just to indicate, how we would use the scoring to identify areas where we might improve. And also when we start looking at, what is the sweet spot for each of the technologies, so that it helps with the positioning of new technologies to avoid confusion of multiple platforms. Whereas the visual analytics is really about scaled consumption of insights and democratizing data consumption. It also allows them to the business analysts to drill into detail from the same starting point as these consumers, but at the same time, we want to add additional capabilities for these business analysts to go in depth for more high quality analysis. That also sort of suggests that we can do it in a safe way. It sort of doesn't need to be at a massive scale, the same level, as we've got for the consumers. So, if you look at this slide, it gives a bit of a perspective about the scale and the difference. So where our visual analytics platforms, like proven scale platform with over 50,000 users, also in the context of business self-service delivery, it's really important and useful to have this single platform where authors can create assets and share that with business users without significant checkpoints or toll gates. And then in addition and complementary to this for a very specific user group, we can then add the capabilities around advanced analytics. So the biggest challenge that we're seeing is really around how do we ensure that there's consistency between the numbers and the insights across the different platforms. That's especially important where you've got different personas handing off, or when there's one persona actually switching between the platforms. So we've got the consumers with the visual analytics, curated apps. They're not likely to create their own. Business analysts doing much more exploratory analysis. Developers building applications to publish to these consumers, and we've got data scientists working on their own platform. And basically, there's two extremes of approach to the data. You can the worst case scenario is that everyone is doing their own thing on pulling data from pulling the raw data from wherever the source is, and creating and preparing routines to prepare the data just specifically for their use case and their platform. Ultimately, that I'm sure everyone is aware, lead to lots of duplication, duplication of data, inconsistent logic. And no matter how smart your AI-enabled platform is, there is no magic bullet for messy data, at least not yet. So more preferred approach is to start building up reusable layers. And I'm not saying they should be central, but they can be centrally governed and centralized structures. But they can also be distributed in how they are stored. So, I mean, the first step is really about creating a unified layer from the perspective of the data provider. So let's say finance is a big data provider because everyone uses finance data. So the finance also decides on the logic for the metrics. They decide what the sales amount is, what the cost amount is, the revenue. And they will publish that to be picked up by other consuming functions. Then, and taking that as a starting point and a single place to pull from is already a good step. Second step is that you then from the consuming domain, so let's say the commercial function, they will use finance data, but they will also use their own data from the CRM system, from external sources about market share. And the trick there is that the data needs to be brought together in the terms that are relevant to the business. So let's look at for commercial, everything is about brands, it's about the customers, the doctors, the markets and territories. So all of this data has to be mapped consistently to those dimensions, including finance data, because just profit centers doesn't tell anyone anything in the commercial domain. So having that as a reusable domain specific layer is a massive step, and that's where there's a lot of investment being done, and will really help drive consistency. And then from there, basically, you've got this use case specific layer where the only operations then are really about selecting what are the data points and metrics that you want to see, what's the level of detail that your user wants to see it at, what do you want to filter out. But that's pretty much it. Well, and what format would work, what schema, it looks different for a data scientist than it looks for a visual analytics platform. But that's heavily sort of reusable, and that should be quite consistent. So when doing that, it sort of really helps provide a tiered approach where especially from left to right, you start with the use case specific data layer, and the business analyst might pick up from there. And then if they decide or find that it doesn't give all the answers, they go one level up. And every time, you go one level deeper upstream if you don't find what you need, which is fine. That will add to the tactical data layer, which doesn't need to be a problem. It can be, for small scale, a one-off question, that's fine. It becomes a problem when it turns into productionized use. So this is something that we should monitor in the tactical data layers. What are these what are they connecting to, and what's the usage volume, and how often is it being refreshed? Because that would be a good approach to start monitoring what you might bring into the reusable layer as reusable assets. So what have we've spoken about? So I shared our insights and approach to scaling to a multi-platform strategy for our visual analytics and augmented insights, augmented intelligence services to our business. What are the main challenges in doing that? I spoke about how we use a business-driven approach, a user-centric approach, to look at the use cases, using that to provide clear positioning on the different platforms. Then also that it's important to understand the end-to-end user journey so that you can understand where the handover points will be between use cases and across the personas. And then touched also on the biggest challenge, which is about how do you create reusable analytics-ready data layers. And obviously there's no magic bullet, but there are structured approaches that seem to emerge that work really well for us, that will help out. So with that, I'd like to thank you for listening to me and hand over to Alvin.
Yes, thank you, Axel, and thank you for sharing the comments and your approach with everyone. I think it's Tellius is here as a sponsor of this event, and our focus is certainly right in this realm of augmented or AI-driven analytics. And we've been helping innovative companies such as Novartis empower their business and data analytics teams with AI-powered decision intelligence, so you can more quickly understand what's happening, understand why metrics change, and then ultimately decide how to impact business outcomes in very precise ways. Just to give you a little bit of background, it really starts by connecting to data on the left side, right? And so whether you're taking a fully governed approach that Axel was talking about, right, where you have your data fully modeled or prepared in your data warehouse, so we can certainly connect to that, to those data sources live and even leverage in database processing. Or if needed, you can also combine data, prepare data, and create metrics in our system, right, for more ad hoc approaches or experimentation, or even in your live production environment. Our core capabilities ultimately lie with offering you a different experience to help you speed the generation of insights and deliver those to your end users. And it features first our natural language search capability that really unlocks ad hoc analysis for any user to get instant answers. It also features our AI-powered guided insights as well to help you, automatically analyze data, reduce the time it takes to discover the relevant insights and to drive deeper analysis with less manual effort. In addition, we also have an ML predictions capability as well, so you can actually create machine learning models and utilize predictive analytics. And because we have all these capabilities wrapped up together along with data visualization, it makes it very easy, even for data experts, not only to augment their analytics workflow, but ultimately share those and collaborate with business users. Now, with that being said, when we look at, our customers ultimately leverage Tellius for different groups of users that you see on the right side here. So first is, you may have initiatives to empower business users with easier self-service, right, and democratize data access. And really that's where the natural language search and automated proactive monitoring comes into play. Or you may be looking to supercharge your business and data analytics teams, right, with AI automation, so they can get faster insights such as segmentation, trend drivers, market share analysis, and so forth. And then finally, we also give data experts much easier to use visual ML modeling tools. So you can actually build predictions and forecasts and ultimately collaborate with the business. Now, all that being said, I just wanted to just quickly show you a few different examples of this. Okay, so it actually would start, let's say we just start by asking a question. Here we just look at revenue by state, right? So in this example, what's happening is that the system will interpret what's being entered by text or even spoken by voice, interpret that into a query, present those answers in the best fit visualization. And in addition, on the right side, you also see the capability where everything that the system is doing is very transparent. So you can see what data is being used, the SQL code that's being generated, and when we get to advanced insights, even the underlying models and the performance metrics of those models. From here, you can do typical things such as adding to a VisPad, changing the visualization, or even exporting the content out to external systems as well. So next, let's look at some time series data. Now, there's a few things to highlight here. Anytime we do analysis, we also will also apply machine learning models and statistical analysis to highlight any anomalies in your data. Okay, and we'll use historical data and also incorporate seasonality into the mix as well. So in this case, I'm highlighting here a specific point of interest. Now in our system, you can also drill as you would with your typical analytics tools, but keep in mind that we don't require predetermined drill paths, right? So you can actually drill all over, about, and across your data as you would want to, especially since we handle unaggregated data very well. Now, in this case, we see a drop in revenue, and we want to understand why. So via a single click capability, we can kick off what we call an insight job in our system, where the system will automatically scan through all the data that's available and find for you the relevant insights. So instead of you having to slice and dice data to find the important metrics or those contributors to this insight, what we'll do is surface those insights to you automatically and present to you an interpretation or a mini story, if you will, about why things change in natural language. When I scroll down a little bit here, you can see additional exploration capabilities. So not only do we present you an answer, but we also give you the capability to explore for yourself as well, so you gain more confidence with the analysis. From here, in this specific case, we noticed that, hey, there was a difference between the revenue coming from paid search versus social, and then we can drill in, get some further analysis, and actually do a cohort comparison against those two groups to see what changed. The other thing is that, this analysis doesn't have to be kicked off through visualizations, right? Or by asking questions. You can do very directed analysis as well, just by picking off specific metrics in the system. And in this case, we chose to analyze customers who have a high lifetime value. In this case, we automatically identify for you the factors that drive these groups of customers and present to you the segments of customers of high lifetime value. And again, also allow you to go into each of these segments, explore the data, and even export the data if you needed to, if you wanted to, let's say, do some additional targeting for sales and marketing purposes. But with that, I will just pause here. Hopefully that gives you a taste of what you can do, and hand the presentation over to Maisa.
Thank you so much, Alvin. Thank you so much, Axel. We are right at the 12:15 p.m. mark, so I'm gonna unfortunately have to skip Q&A, but we're gonna save the questions for our next speaker meet and greet coming up next. Please do tune in. That's what we have next. It's a great opportunity for you to ask questions directly to our speakers. It's a great networking opportunity. After the speaker meet and greet, we continue with our program, and we have a presentation on using your data warehouse for more than analytics. Stay tuned. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mike.